Bonjour, bienvenue, welcome. Thank you for joining us today for the YEP Supervisor Info Session. So for today, we're going to go through and talk about the aim of the program. For people who are new this year, this will be new information for you, but of course, for people who have been before, they're probably familiar with the program and the purpose of it. We're going to provide a little bit of information on the students for this year. We're going to go through and discuss the supervisor application process because it is different this year, which will include our partnership agreement for YEP supervisors. Then we'll go through and we're going to go over the timeline because it's slightly different than last year, as well as highlighting some of our program enhancements and then discussing the program structure. So the program, in essence is the same as before, but there are things that have changed. We will discuss the role of the YEP supervisor, and then we will move through the YEP performance management framework because that is new for this year. So for those of you who are new, the aim of the Youth Employment Preparation Program is twofold. The first is it's a reunification program between university students in Canada and the Canadian Armed Forces members and support personnel. So for students who have parents that are posted out and they're maybe in university in Canada, but they also may be in university in another location in Europe, they're really able through this program to come back and spend time with their families while also earning an income. The second goal or aim of the program is to provide both university students and our OutCan high school students with the opportunity to have a meaningful work placement that fosters personal and professional development. So as most of you already would know here, this program, it is run by Military Family Services Europe, which is a division of Canadian Forces Morale and Welfare Services. And for us, I have a quote down here from Franklin Roosevelt that we can't always build the future for our youth, but we can build our youth for the future. And that's been a bit of a touch point for us as we're moving forward in this program. Is really, there is a lot that's happening right now globally, and there are a lot of emotions and change and things that are happening. And we're really looking to provide a program for students where they can develop, they can become professionals and become young adults who can go forward into this time of change and into this world and really feel equipped to move forward as a professional. So for students this year, when we're talking about it, it's a little bit confusing. We talk about YEP as in seasons. So if we're saying 2024-25 season, that's this current season, but it's because the students all registered and began the program in December of 2024. So we have 22 students in total that are participating in the program, and they're coming from 10 different locations in 6 different countries. We have 14 students that are first timers in the program, so they're considered year 1. We have 6 students in year 2 of the program and 2 students who are in year 3. And those are our 2 university students, our 3rd year students. So the ages range from 15 years old to 20 years of age, but all students must be 16 before they are taking place in their work placement. So for this year, we've changed a little bit the way we're doing the supervisor application process. We have made sure that people could register this year, either in English or in French, via a Microsoft form registration. Link is embedded here into this presentation, which you'll receive after. So that's going to be the first step for supervisors, is to go through the registration form, ask you information. Sorry, we're just letting some people in the room here. I'm going to ask you for information about what you are wanting as a YEP supervisor, what type of job you're going to be offering, what the hours would be, what your preferred work schedule would be for that student, things like that. So it's going to mine a lot of information from you there, as well as any skills that you're looking for your student to have, specialized security requirements. All of that is going to be covered on that form. Then our second step is going to be for the supervisor to complete something called the partnership agreement. And that is also available in French or English. And if you didn't receive an email from me yet that was inviting you to this meeting and providing those documents, please let me know and I can send those to you. So we're going to go through and discuss, a little bit here about the supervisor's partnership agreement. The intent was this for this document was to formalize the agreement between us as an organization, MFS as a division of CFMWS, and the supervisors. So we really felt that in order for us to have the student really meeting expectations and being able to manage their performance, it was going to be key for us to really identify what the role of the supervisor was and what our role is here as MFS. So you'll see this is a PDF fillable form that you'll fill out for your agreement with all of the basic information. But here down below, it's talking about what our responsibilities are for you in this program, the way that we'll be coordinating. We're going to be making sure students all have their security clearance, making sure that we're covering all the salary costs, all of the training that's related. But also new things that we're doing this year is making sure that we're providing continued oversight and coaching for all of the students, and also assisting with performance management. And so we'll discuss that in more detail as we go through the performance management framework. And for the supervisors, some of this is similar to last year, that the supervisor is agreeing to create the work planner. So that's going to be really important that we have performance and learning objectives on there for the student, both so the student knows what's expected of them, but also as a mechanism for us to make sure that they're following through and they are meeting the performance expectations. Also, there will be the on-the-job training that would be specific to that job that the student is in, and that would fall under the responsibility of a supervisor. Also, of course, the direct supervision. I know sometimes people want to go on holiday, that's fine. We'll talk a little bit more about how scheduling works with a student. But in the event that a supervisor would be away, that the supervisor would have a suitable person to be a backup supervisor in their absence. Again, looking at things like timesheets that we will discuss. We have a new format for our timesheets this year, but they are responsible for making sure those are submitted. And then also the new pieces here is we're really looking to formalize this collaborative relationship between myself as the YEP coordinator and the YEP supervisor, which we also sometimes use the term employer. So we're really working to be together, discussing this, collaborating on the students' performance management, on the students' development, and really looking at it as a partnership between us. And then again, the last piece, which we did have last year, but there will be performance evaluations again, a midpoint and endpoint. Really that data that we're getting on the students' performance and also on the program is going to be very important to us to make sure that we're able to continue improving this program and making it something that's desirable for both students and for supervisors to participate in. So when we're looking at the youth employment, just the program timeline, it's very similar to last year. So we have the planning and info session that happens in October, and the students start registering for the program in November. So we've extended this year, prior years, the student training was from December to March, and we've now changed that where there's student training and onboarding, and that time period goes from December until April. And so we'll talk a little bit more about the onboarding, but the important piece to take away from this is that the students are already onboarded and they will already have employee numbers, security clearances, all of that will be done before they're really coming into contact with their supervisor. And then for the student application and interview process, that's going from March until May, but in reality, because we only have 2 university students, unless you are working with one of those 2 students, the reality is that that interview and process will be happening in April and May because the high school students would not be starting a placement until June. So we'll talk about, again, in more detail as we go through the format of the program, but the student work placements will happen between May and August. And then at the end of August, everyone will be submitting, making sure they've submitted their evaluations so we can go through all of the data. And then in September, then internally, we would be evaluating that and making any necessary changes. So the program in itself really is pretty much a year long from our perspective as MFS. But for the student, it is a really big commitment. They're looking at that window between November and August. So there really is a lot that is required from them during this time. For this past year, we were looking to do some program enhancements. We were guided by our strategic imperatives. There are 4 of them were outlined for us, but we've taken 3 of them, which was improving the quality of the CFMWS experience, increasing operational efficiencies, and improving the employee experience. So those are things that we were looking at as we looked at this program and wanted to see how we could make it better. So one of the big moves that's different this year was moving towards a customized training program for the students. This is different because now what the training that they're doing is based on unique skills and abilities, the students who may have prior work experience, and the YEP program level. So we're really looking to provide them with a customized development experience so they can really look at who they are and what they need to develop. Some students are coming here and they've worked before and they're very professional, they have very good executive functioning skills. Other students are coming in and they're very new, and these are things they don't necessarily have polished yet. Another thing that's new this year is the 8-week paid training period, which is why the students are being onboarded early. So with this 8-week period, it's going to be starting in March 17th and then continuing for 8 weeks. And then students at that time are going to be doing their mandatory onboarding training that they would need to do as an employee of CFMWS. But they're also going to be accessing other training that's available through our learning and development platform called My Talent. So we're really excited about this because it's offering some really excellent training for the students that they didn't have access to last year. And then this year, we've also designed specialized training for the students, which they've been moving through in this time period from December through February. Another update that we did this year was redesigning the administrative procedures and processes for the program with the goal of improving operational efficiencies. So now internally, we're using a centralized tracking matrix, which we're very excited about because I'm located in Brussels, and then we're also working with Carol, with our manager, who is located in GK, as well as our human resources department. So we're finding that that's been a big benefit for us. And then also the digitization of all the registration, program forms, and evaluations. So we're really looking to make it a more seamless experience for our supervisors as well to alleviate the administrative burden that's put on them. Part of that is also the creation of a customized SharePoint site and Teams channels for the program. So that's something that you'll be given access to once all the supervisors are signed up and we're moving forward in the program together as a group. So on there, you'll have access to resource materials, program information, updates that are happening at different times throughout the program. And then we're also trialing the submission of timesheets through there. So before, in prior years, students were asked to fill out a timesheet, have their supervisor sign that, and then email the timesheet in. But that had been flagged as a difficulty for a lot of students. Again, we're really working on them, improving executive functioning, being able to do the administrative tasks. And we found there was a lot of chasing that was happening with that. And so we had felt that moving towards a different system would probably be more beneficial. So the students this year, our goal is for them to be filling out the timesheets on a piece of paper or obviously electronically if they are working remote. And then they would submit that to the supervisor. And then there would be a digital Microsoft form that you could just go to the website and we'll click on the link in SharePoint, and then you would just fill out the time in there and then submit it that way. So it would not need to be emailed in as an attachment. We will provide more information as we move forward. Carol and I are going to be trialing this system as the students are moving through the paid training portion, because we'll be tracking their hours for that. And then if things go well and that's seamless, then that's how we'll be moving forward as we go throughout the placements. And the last point just that I wanted to mention that we're going to talk about in a little bit more detail is the development of the performance management framework. This has been anchored in our CFMWS HR policies and the core competencies. And the goal for us is to enhance the student accountability and performance and to better support you as a YEP supervisor in your management of the students, but also as mentors for them, both for yourselves and also for us internally at MFS to serve as a mentor for them as well. And the performance management framework, I really think is going to be key to that happening. So for those of you who were in the program last year, this will be very familiar. There's 4 very distinct components to the program: the student training, the application process, that's when they're actually applying for the jobs with the work placements. Then there's going to be a 4 to 8 week work placement. We'll talk about that in a bit more detail shortly. And then the evaluation period. So when we're talking about the student training, as I've already mentioned, it's going to be customized training for them. It is all done virtually because students are located in so many different areas. And it's, again, going to be the talent through my training, the onboarding talent, and then also customized learning that's been designed for them. So the topics for the customized learning and on my talent is going to range from the development of soft skills, as well as to the development of skills for applying for jobs. So this is going to be a whole variety of things: receiving feedback, giving feedback, awareness of self and others, applying for resumes, cover letter writing, interviewing techniques. We're really looking at offering the things that are going to be key for students at this age, so that the learning that they're doing here in the program, they can take forward when they're no longer a YEP student, when they return to Canada and are going to be competing in the labor market. Students are required to complete all of this training. If they fail to complete the training, they won't be able to move forward for their work placement. It is mandatory. And as we've talked about before, for the onboarding timeline, almost all of the students now have received their security clearance certificates. There are a few more who are just waiting for to sign the certificate and submit it. And then they're going to begin the onboarding process. So right now the job poster has gone out to the students and they're applying for it. And then that will close on the 7th. And our goal is for March 17th for students to have their employee number, be signed up in core, and have access to my talent. So for the application process, this will look a little bit different than last year. So we will have job advertisements that are being released. Last year, there was one job description that the students applied for. The students are already in the system, so they have applied for a job poster per se. But for the purpose of the work placement, we will have specific job advertisements that are designed based on the feedback that you're giving us on the YEP Supervisor registration form, so that students understand this is what's required of this position. And if there's special technological skills or other things that they need, that will be identified on there. So we may have multiple students applying for the same job. That is definitely a possibility. So students are going to go through and they are going to interview for these positions. So that didn't happen last year with all of the interviews. There were a lot of joint interviews that were done. So we're really looking to do the panel interview this year so that you as a YEP supervisor have a say in who is going to be your student. And we're making sure that we're putting the best match forward, but also giving the students the opportunity to understand what it is to be in that pressure situation where you go in an interview and you have to be able to talk about your skills. You have to be able to talk positively about what you have to offer. That's going to be a really important skill for the students. So that's going to be a part of this. And then as we move forward, students will be applying for positions either in their location, but also we're going to have remote positions that are available as well. So we have some students that are in remote locations, and then we also have students who are located where there is a center, but because of the number of students there wouldn't be that same number of positions available. So we do also have students who may be working with supervisors who are located in Canada. So for the work placement, our timeline is looking different, a little bit different this year. So last year, a lot of students were working up to 12 weeks. This year, we are looking at placements that are ranging from 4 to 8 weeks. And this is calculated based on the student's experience, the YEP program level, the annual budget, and the employer's needs. And really, in terms of the time, it's a minimum of 13.5 hours, and then it's up to 37.5 hours. So that's going to be something that when you're filling out that registration form, to make sure you're identifying clearly what it is that your need would be for that student. And then again, when we're looking at the job placement, everything's going to be outlined on the poster for the students. But in terms of vacation and the other things like that, that's really up to the supervisor and the student. Obviously, we understand if the student is coming back and they're going to be in Canada or in Europe visiting with their parents, they're wanting to take vacation, they're going to have different timelines. So also the supervisor is probably going to have vacation time or leave they're going to be taking. So that's going to be a matter of if there's a set timeline where the student can work, we'll put that on the job poster so we don't have students applying for something where they're not going to be there at that time. But also it'll be a little bit of a conversation back and forth because we do want to support both the supervisor and the student to be able to also enjoy their summer. When we're looking at the evaluation, like I mentioned before, this is really important. It's important for two reasons, really. One of the reasons, as I mentioned already, is the program development. It's really important for us to receive feedback from you as a supervisor to understand what's going well and what needs work. And we really can't do that without receiving that information from you, but also from the students. But also the secondary reason is that the giving and receiving of feedback is really essential as a process for students and for anyone in the workplace, understanding that that is normal. And we'll talk about that a bit more in the performance management piece, but really getting them used to both evaluating themselves in a irrational way, not in a self-critical way and not in an idealized way, really looking at themselves and what they're able to accomplish and being able to self-assess. And then also really for them to be able to receive feedback from a supervisor and then make modifications from that. And so we'll talk a little bit more because that feedback will be both in person and also in this format with the YEP program evaluation. So when we're talking about the mentorship, that's really, really the key as a YEP supervisor. And I love this quote here. It says that I'm always doing that which I cannot do in order that I may learn how to do it. And that is, I think, captures a bit of the essence of what we're looking for these students. These students are young, between the ages of 15 to 20. If, most of them, if they've been in Europe for a few years, they probably haven't had a lot of work experience that they brought with them to Europe. They might have babysat a little bit, maybe done some lawn mowing, a few other jobs, but they're really not going to have a lot of experience in an office. And so they're not necessarily going to know how to do these things. And so we're asking them to come in and do something new. And that takes a lot of courage to come into a workplace to do that. So we're really looking at our supervisors as mentors, someone who can play a role in shaping that next generation of young professionals, and also obviously benefiting because the cost is through our budget here with MFS, so receiving that labor that doesn't have a financial cost for you. And really, we're wanting to look at the students and take them exactly where they're at because they are all on different levels, and really to meet them where they're at and help them to develop. And we're not able to do that without the YEP supervisors. We can provide through MFS all of this training, but it's really that on-the-job training which provides them this other element that has a real potential to make a positive impact for them. And then also, we want to mention that what they're doing here in this work placement, obviously they're making money, they're going to be growing as an individual. So that is helping them there, but it's not something that happens in isolation. So as the students are going through and learning in the program, these are lessons that they're going to take forward into their personal life, into their family life, back when they're in the school. So this is a growth and development experience that can radiate out into their lives and impact them in a number of areas. So, and that is really thanks to the role that supervisor will play for them. So as anyone who's returning knows, most of the YEP supervisors are coming from MFS, PSP, NATEX, the CAF. But again, all of the administrative portion from our perspective is coming from MFS, but we really have all of those different divisions and organizations that are involved. So new this year as well is we really look to formalize the reporting structure because we felt that went hand in hand with the performance management framework, is really identifying for everybody involved what the reporting structure is now. So for the YEP student, they're going to report to myself as the YEP program coordinator. for the course of their involvement in the program, from when they register in November all the way through till they're finished, which may be up until August. But then they are going to have a secondary reporting duty, which is with you as the YEP supervisor, quote unquote, employer. That's that secondary reporting duty, which is going to be happening for the length of that work placement. So we're really highlighting to the student that they have two responsibilities. They really understand that they need to be accountable to both myself and also to their supervisor. And then also we've got that dotted line, just really trying to reinforce that for myself and you, the supervisor, I'm really looking to work together as a collaborative partner, so I can support you, and you can also provide me with feedback, which will help me better support and coach the student. So in terms of the supervisor timeline, we talked a little bit about the length of time that the students are involved. It is more condensed, of course, for the supervisors. We've got here in February our info session, and right now when we're accepting applications. For the interview and application process for the student, that's going to be really a shorter amount of time for you. If you fill out the registration form in detail, I'll be able to do a lot on your job poster without having to really require too much of you. And then, information like that will be sent to you for you to check. We'll look at coordinating schedules for the interview, but that's really the only involvement you'll need to have until the student has interviewed, and then you can provide feedback with me and we can figure out who's going to be the best fit for you. And the bulk of your involvement will be between the May to August timeframe, as I've mentioned, and that of course will be dependent on the student that's placed with you. And then for yourselves, really that timeline would end probably at the latest in August when you submit the evaluation. And then sometimes in September, people are still having some communication, but really it is a shorter time frame, and almost all of the work that you're asked to do is in that student placement time. So as I mentioned before, for the program, stakeholder feedback is going to be huge for us this year. We really, really want to work with the students to understand the importance of feedback. So again, like I mentioned, it's really a relationship between the three of us, the student, myself, and you as the supervisor. And between the student and the supervisor, we're really looking for feedback on student performance. The student to speak to you about how they think they did, even on tasks day to day, to really, finish up a task and then be able to let you know how they thought that went. And also for you to be able to give that feedback formally through the evaluation, but also on the job. That's going to be really important to get them conditioned to hearing how they're doing so that they can make adjustments. The student and myself, the student will be providing me with feedback on the program, but also there's going to be feedback on performance going back and forth between the student and myself. And we've already started that process with their training that they're doing. So I do provide students feedback on the training. I'm very honest with them about what is expected if things are not expected. And we're really highlighting that, feedback is not rejection. Feedback is information to help you grow. And so that's really the kind of, feedback culture that we've started to work on in the program, so that when the student does arrive to you, they'll be okay. They'll be okay to receive the feedback and hear what they need to do differently. And that's a really important piece and an important skill. And then of course, between us, the coordinator and the supervisor, I'm going to be looking for you to give me honest feedback on what's working and not working from an administrative perspective and program perspective, and also for you to be letting me know what's going on with the student. There will be those opportunities for you, again, to have the formalized evaluation done, but I also really welcome a Teams message or an email, or we can get on a Teams call, even if you just need to let me know, hey, this is working really well, the student's doing great, or even, I think there's a bit of an issue here, this is the challenge the student's having, and that's where I'm going to come and support you to make sure that I can provide the student with coaching, because obviously I've been interacting with them since the beginning of the program. For our performance management framework, what we did is looked at some of the key performance management policies that are a part of our organization, and we took those as an anchor. So looking at a system that's employee-centered, continuous, meaningful, and brings value. Those are our guiding principles. And the objective is really to manage performance and drive performance results. Now, of course, a lot of these students are coming in for a 4 to 8 week placement. So this is happening on a much shallower level, I guess you'd say, than it would be obviously for an employee that's part of our organization that's here throughout the year. But we still want to do that because these students are still coming to us. They are still employees, and this is what our goal is for anyone who is an employee in our organization. So we're really looking to try to have this be, I guess, on a smaller level for each student that comes through. So part of that is the policy to plan, review, and evaluate the performance of all of our employees and to define expectations through goal setting, supporting their development and recognizing their contributions. So obviously it's not annual. Obviously we'll be giving feedback on the job. We'll also have those 2 evaluations that are done for the students. So that's how we're doing that. And then we're continuing with their development, both their formal development and then their development being mentored on the job. So part of what we're doing for this is we're going to be using the shared competencies for CFMWS. So I won't read through these, but obviously it will be in the presentation when it goes out, and anyone who is already part of our organization will be familiar with this. So for client focus, organizational knowledge, communication, innovation, teamwork, and leadership. So students are provided or will be provided before they start their placement with a training session that helps them to understand what these competencies are and then what those competencies should look like at their level. We have different levels for how that behavior would be demonstrated. So the students will be trained on this prior to them coming to you. And it's our hope that this can be another anchoring point to help them understand how their behavior should be in the workplace and what some of their goals are in terms of development. So again, another central piece of this is really student ownership and accountability. And this is quite different with this program. And I think it's unique because for a lot of students, you know, sometimes maybe they're more independent at school, but not in all cases, some students really do rely heavily on their parents to help them manage things administratively, whether it's at school or in other areas of their life. And we're really looking to the students to demonstrate leadership and to be able to do this on their own in the program with minimal parental involvement. So we do very kindly ask the parents. We only really message, email the parents if it's something that's a big change. But other than that, we really are only communicating directly with the student, and we're asking those students to be accountable and to be responsible. So for ownership, we're defining that as the initiative and responsibility for their growth and development during the participation in the program. It's really up to them. And for accountability, the students responsible for the assignments, tasks, and activities that are assigned to them throughout the program. So that covers the training that they would be doing prior to and all the administrative responsibilities, but also everything that you're assigning to them as a student. They are accountable for that. It is really up to them to be managing that piece. So we've got a chart here. What I want to go through quickly is really looking at what we see as the process when we talk about student ownership and accountability. So if we're starting here on the top with the willingness to learn and grow, the students have been engaging in training. One of the things that we've been really working at is looking at understanding what a growth mindset is versus a fixed mindset. And the students are currently working on an assignment discussing that self-reflectively, and then letting me know, how they see themselves, what kind of mindset they have, and how they can switch to a growth mindset throughout their time in the program. And that's going to be really important because in order to be successful and do these things that are hard and new, we need to really look at the situation with a growth mindset as an opportunity to learn, not with a fixed mindset fearing failure. So part of that is really for the student to understand the expectations. So part of that is the training that they do beforehand, understanding the expectations. And the secondary piece of that is them really understanding the expectations in their work placement. And that's through the detailed work planner that they have and understanding what the tasks are. The next step we're really asking them to move through is goal setting. Talking with you as a supervisor, looking at what the goals are for what you want them to achieve, but also for them to be setting goals in terms of how they want to be performing in the workplace. And once they have those goals set, both by you and the ones they set themselves, we're really looking for them to work on their critical thinking and their organizational skills. Obviously everybody is busy as a supervisor. You're going to be assigning tasks and be there as a mentor, but you're also, the goal is not that you need to hold their hand every step of the way. The goal is that they can have a conversation with you, ask clarifying questions, have those tasks given to them, but that they're employing their own confidence and critical thinking skills to figure out, okay, what do I need to do? How do I need to do it? That moves them through to the plan of action, figuring out how they're going to achieve that work, and then guiding them through to the performance, the actual fulfillment of the work, whether not even just from the big picture of fulfilling this work placement, but day to day, what is the task that's been assigned to you and performing that task? The next step for the student is really to reflect. We're continually teaching them that that's what they need to do. You complete a task, you need to look at, okay, how did that go? Do I need more information for next time? Was I able to do that task successfully? And then looking to the supervisor for feedback. Okay, I didn't understand. Can you give me information on what I could do differently next time? And then that cycles you right back to the beginning. Once they've completed something, learn from it, receive the feedback, then they're approaching, next day, next task, whatever it is, again, engaging with that willingness to learn and grow, taking the information, the feedback that's been given to them, and figuring out, okay, what's the next step, the next thing I'm going to attempt to do. So this is really our cycle and what we're really hoping for the students. And obviously some students, especially some of our older students or university students, they can come in and move through a cycle like this pretty seamlessly because they've been in the program before, or they just happen to be quite good at being able to do that. And for some of the other students, in reality, it might be a little bit more bumpy. But our hope is that as we move through and use the performance management, use the guidelines, use everything that we have and continually provide feedback, we can get the students moving through this cycle so that they start to become comfortable and realize how to receive the feedback and modify their performance so that they can meet the expectations you have for them. So that is an overview of what basically for this year, what our program is going to look like, and also some of the updates that are different than last year. So I'm going to stop sharing this screen, but I would just welcome now if anyone has any questions that they'd like to ask about something that I've discussed.
We have a question here, Kristine. Will they have access to the D1?
Yeah, that's a very good question. So for students, when they are put into the system now this year, they're onboarded early, they're being set up in the system with their personal email. They've already provided permission for that. As we move forward this year, not all students require a CFMWS email or a Forces email. So I'll be looking for the supervisors to let me know, and we'll be discussing that as we move through. Does the student need to have a CFMWS email? Do they need to have a Forces email? Like, what kind of access do they need? You can stipulate that, and then we'll work on that together to get that set up. But we're not going to automatically assign all of the organizational email addresses as we did last year, because the reality is that not necessarily everybody will be using those. So you just need to let me know, and then we can work together to get that set up.
Thank you.
Will we have to provide laptops to the students? For students who are working remotely, then last year they were working using their own laptop. And my understanding is that for students that were in a location in person, that they were provided with information, they were provided with a laptop there. If for some reason there isn't a laptop available there, then I would suggest if you can let me know, and then I can investigate that further. I don't know if Kettle, can you speak to that at all?
I know we have a couple of laptops, but we would have to look into like how many we have available. Yeah, but I'm sure that we can find a solution.
Okay, well, merci tout le monde. Thank you so much for coming and for listening to the presentation. If you have any questions that you would like to ask following this session, please feel free to reach out to me on Teams or to send me an email, or we can hop on a call together.